Hey guys, it's Ravenhawk6910 reporting once again. It is a hot, very hot July 2014, and it's time for another layout blog video. So to start things off, we're going to start with these three locomotives right here. NS 9294, Chicago and Northwestern 8646, and NS 8820 are all finally completed and in service on the layout. So here's the side of the 9294, at least the conductor's side, so you can see a few of the details on it. So I just finished this one the other day, along with the 8820 as well. I managed to finish them at the same time, and I'll pull forward a little bit here. The 8646 was just a re-decal, so that was an easy job to do, and I was able to do that in one day. So that one's in service. The one thing I still haven't done is there is a small decal under the cab right here that still has the original road number that it came in the box as. So I am looking for a paint that I can use to cover that up with, and then I'll go back over it eventually with the new numbers. Pull forward here one more time. And of course we have the 8820, which is my top hat. Really nice. I'm very happy to finally have all three of these units in service. So now, thanks to this, I have three of my Dash 9s in service now. The only one that's left is the British Columbia Railway Dash 9, which you'll see shortly on the workbench. But let's stop drooling over the Dash 9s and move on to some other stuff that's going on the layout right now. The biggest change to come to the layout has been the addition of this new yard. I was getting a little tired with the configuration with the gravel plant there, so I went ahead and just took it out and reconfigured the track, which is the beauty of Bachmann track, and I made this small 3-track yard. The yard itself is actually pretty good. I mean, I can actually fit my entire coal train on these 3 tracks. I still have room for switchers and a couple of cabooses as well. So, all in all, it came out pretty nice, and it serves the purpose well. Usually when I'm running it, I will have either one train on the main line and then have another one here in the yard, or I'll have it empty like you see here with a few exceptions. Something else that I've been doing on the layout with my coal train is I've been experimenting with distributed power units, or DPUs. I've had some mixed results with it. It really only works if you have engines that have the same speed steps matched. Of course, I'm talking DCC terms, and I'm running on a DC layout. However, the same rule basically applies. However, I've really had a lot of luck with my 2 NS-9s and then NS-1030 as the DPU. Granted, I can only run at slow speeds, but it still looks pretty cool nonetheless. So that's really all that's new over here on the layout, guys. So let's go and head on over to the workbench right now to see what's happening over there with my projects. So starting off over here on the workbench is the locomotive I showed you last month. This is NS 8500, a Norfolk Southern C40-8.5. I just, actually a few days after my last blog video ended, I got the cab in and installed it on the locomotive and the new air conditioner. So most of the major custom work is actually finished. What I'm doing now is just waiting for the real NS 8500 to come out of the shop so that I can paint it to be accurate to the prototype. As many of you know, the real Dash 8.5s haven't come out of Roanoke yet. And so really I could go ahead and paint it right now, but I don't want to jump the gun because I don't know what it's going to look like. And, you know, you could have it in pretty much any paint scheme. It could be an Operation Lifesaver unit, it could be one representing a special group like the Go Rail unit. You never know. So that's why I'm just kind of leaving it in primer right now. But it looks pretty nice. Again, this is one of the screen printed cabs that you can get off of shapeways.com. This is just a generic cab. The guy who makes it actually makes one that can fit an Athearn Genesis SD60M for when you want to make an SD60E. So what I had to do to get the engine to fit, as you can see, I kept the original battery boxes from this Dash 8. What I had to do was come in and cut this bottom section off and get it to fit on both sides, and then so that way it would seat properly on the frame, or the shell rather. Then once that was done, I went ahead and installed the air conditioner. This one is actually the air conditioner from my British Columbia Railway Dash 9, and since my British Columbia unit didn't need it, I just went ahead and stuck it on this, because if you look at prototype photos, the .5s are actually getting Dash 9 air conditioners. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this locomotive's coming out. I didn't think this would be an easy build, but it actually is coming along quite nicely. And so the real .5s are supposed to enter service sometime in the fall, so this one's going to be on the workbench for a while waiting for its prototype to come out. While I was in the process of finishing up the decals on my NS-9s, I went ahead and finished most of the decal work on NS6160 as well. The only thing that I have not finished is just that tad little bit of safety striping there on the end of the frame, right there. But other than that, everything is pretty much ready to go on it. I've already hit it with a clear coat to seal everything, and it looks pretty nice. The one thing I do need to do is I need to get some handrails for right here on both sides. I don't know why I don't have any, but I think I accidentally broke a set when I was working on one a while back, so. However, that should be an easy fix. I know I can find a set on eBay more than likely at some point. But it's really nice to get to see the 6160 come together finally. This one's been on the workbench for a few months now, and it looks pretty good. It still doesn't have a drive in it, so it's still a dummy. However, at some point down the road I will upgrade this one to a powered motor, and that way I can enter it in service with my other engines. Next up is an item for my steam fleet. This is the Southern Railway or Tennessee Valley Railroad, take your pick, water tender, the WT51. This is a water tender that was built by the Southern for use with their steam locomotives when they were running the program back in the 70s and 80s. The WT51 was in a lot of various paint schemes, but it eventually ended up being donated to the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, and they still use it today behind the 630 on the mainline trips. I got this particular tender in a trade with a friend of mine, Chris Huffman. I'll post a link to his channel here in the description box. But he had actually custom built most of this tender, so I got it in a trade with one of my other engines that I sent him. And when I got it, it was in pretty rough shape when I got it, so I went ahead and did modifications to it to get it to my specs, and I'll show you in some photos in a slideshow here in a minute what all I've done to get it to this point. But basically I had to sand down a lot of the top of it and the front and back ends. Basically these areas right here and up along the top on both sides, and then on the back as well. I've also added metal wheels to it. When I got it, it had plastic wheels. I've also added this step ladder right there, and I've also added the tender tank lids as well, off of another old tender that I have. So all in all, it looks pretty nice. I have road tested it behind the 4501, and it does run pretty nice. So as soon as I get some black paint, I will paint this one up, probably in the Tennessee Valley scheme, to get it what it looks like today. But I'm still not 100% sure yet in terms of that. I might paint it in one of the Southern Excursion schemes as well, since my 4501 is from the Excursion era. But we'll just take a look and see what happens. But right now, I'll post this slideshow and show you what all I have done to get the tender to this point that you see now. And while we're on the subject of water tenders, here is my Bachmann Spectrum water tender that I got a few years ago. This one I am finally doing the modifications needed and the paint job to it to turn it into Southern WT53, which again is another one of the water tenders from the Southern Railway steam excursion era. The red is just a primer, so don't worry, it's not going to be in that scheme. But what I've had to do here to get it to match the prototype is I have completely removed the handrails that went along the top section on both sides of the tender and filled in the holes with putty and just reinforced that on the back. Then also I have taken the tender tank lid and I have lowered that to get it to be more flush with the top, because on the original one it stood proud off of it, but the WT53's tank lids weren't so high up. So I've done those modifications. That was a relatively easy thing to do, and this tender will be painted green and it'll say Southern on the side, Southern WT53, and it will be in the same color as the 4501. So I'll have two auxiliary tenders from the steam era to use behind my excursion engines, or at least the 4501. I do have a Norfolk and Western water tender that's painted to match the 611, but it is the 1994 Bachmann release, and it has these tiny little screws that you can't even, put a Katy coupler on it, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to use that one or not, so we'll just have to see what happens. And here you go, the big one that a lot of you have been asking me about lately. My British Columbia Railway C44-9WL finally has a cab and most of the paint work done on it. So I finally got the cab in from Coslow, and I was able to get it onto the engine the same day and do the modifications to the cab to get it to fit. And it looks pretty good. As you can see, I actually had to paint the whole body the same color I painted the cab, because for some reason the paint on the body did not match properly. So I went ahead and just changed that to get it all one coat, and it looks pretty good actually. So this engine is getting, closer to being done. It's not 100% complete yet. It still has a long way to go. It still has a lot more detail parts that need to be added to it to get it to be accurate. Here's a rear shot of the British Columbia Dash 9, and you can see where I had to paint over the headlight. I will go back over that with some silver paint and touch that up to get it back to the original coat. Also on this side, just like on the front, I have to add the Canadian style anti-climbers, which is another kit I'll have to order separate from Coslow. And then once that's applied, I can worry about adding the handrails and other parts. Also, you can see right here, I need to add the sand fill hatch right here because there's big gaps here. And I have to add the exhaust stack to the roof, the horn, handrails obviously, and I need to get a frame that is the correct color, because black is not the correct color for the British Columbia Dash 9s. The British Columbia ones are silver. But as I said before, this is just an old frame that this thing is sitting on, and will be swapped out and put on the ready to run one as soon as I get that. Now when that'll be, I have no idea yet, but be on the lookout for that in the near future. So there we go, that gets us caught up to mid-July 2014, and yeah, a lot of stuff happening on the layout, a lot of projects getting done, a lot of projects still being worked on. However, that's kind of the nice thing, you cycle through and you get things done and you move on to the next thing. However, right now I am not going to spend any more time out here because it is hot. I'm going to go inside, get me a cold drink, and relax on the couch for a while in front of the fan, and turn off the 3 that I have running out here. So, until next time, this is Ravenhawk6910 signing off.